it off! You're insane!" Sarah screamed as she rushed toward her husband, trying to grab the microphone. "Let me explain. Everyone, please! It's a misunderstanding. It was edited." But Mark did not let her touch him. Greenwich, Connecticut, known as the capital of hedge funds, is the sanctuary of the ultra-wealthy on America's East Coast. Inside gated community protected by strict security fencing, the 5,000-square-foot mansion, approximately 465 square meters, of Mark and Sarah stands radiant under the golden sunlight of a New England autumn. It is a modern colonial design with floor-to-ceiling glass walls, allowing light to flood every corner and display the perfection and abundance within. Locals call it the Glass House, a symbol of a transparent, flawless life. In front of the 3-car garage, Mark is loading a Toomey leather suitcase into the trunk of a glossy black Cadillac SUV. At 38, Mark carries the solid presence of a successful landscape architect. He wears a neatly tucked-in plaid flannel shirt and a practical Garmin watch on his wrist. He is not a polished man. He is a builder, a creator, someone who uses his hands to construct the American dream for his family. Sarah steps out through the front door. She looks radiant in her Lululemon yoga outfit, her blonde hair carefully curled as if she had just left a salon rather than just woken up. Sarah is the ideal suburban housewife, highly active in the PTA, president of the local charity association, and owner of an Instagram account overflowing with images of a perfect life. Mark closes the trunk and turns to embrace his wife. His eyes are filled with trust and reverence, a pure, selfless love, agape, he learned from the Bible. "I'm going to miss you and the kids so much," Mark says warmly. "The church landscape renovation project in Texas is entering its final phase. I need to supervise it closely to make sure everything is perfect for God. I'll be back in 2 weeks. He pulls a black credit card from his wallet, the powerful American Express Centurion. "Take this." Mark places the card in Sarah's hand. "Our 10th anniversary is coming up. I want the vow renewal ceremony to be truly special. Hire the best event company, buy the Vera Wang dress you like, do whatever you want. Don't worry about the cost." Sarah holds the cold black card in her hand. A flash of practical excitement lights up her eyes, but she quickly hides it behind a carefully practiced sweet smile. "Oh, Mark, you're so thoughtful." Sarah rises on her toes and kisses her husband lightly. "Focus on your work. I'll prepare the most amazing party in all of Greenwich. God will bless you." Mark smiles, kisses their 2 children, Noah and little Emma, who are being let out by the nanny, waving goodbye to their father. He gets into the car, and the Cadillac slowly rolls out through the grand gate. The moment Mark's car disappears behind the old oak trees, Sarah pulls out her latest model iPhone. She doesn't open her banking app. She opens Instagram. She uploads the selfie she just took while kissing her husband's cheek. Caption: "Goodbye to my husband on a business trip, the hardest working man in the world, grateful to God for everything." She taps Post. The gentle smile on her lips vanishes instantly, replaced by a cold, disturbingly empty expression. Sarah turns and walks back into the house, dialing a familiar number saved under a fake contact name, PTA President. "Cale?" Her voice turns sultry, completely different from how she spoke to her husband. "He's gone. Meet me at the tennis court. Today I feel like practicing some advanced drills we talked about." The doors of the glass house close. From the outside, it still reflects the clear blue sky and perfectly trimmed lawns, but inside, cracks of deception begin to spread, threatening to bring down the entire castle of happiness. Sarah lies stretched out on a sun lounger beside the crystal-clear saltwater pool, holding an ice-cold mimosa, even though it is only 10 a.m. The sound of gently flowing water carries her mind back into the past, to the University of Virginia campus 15 years earlier. Back then, Sarah was a true queen bee, head cheerleader, the most prominent member of Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority. She was radiant, arrogant, and always the center of every fraternity party. Around her were polished young men and college football stars. And Mark. Mark was just a dirt-poor architecture student living on a full scholarship, working 2 part-time jobs, mornings at Starbucks and nights at the library, just to cover his living expenses. Mark was the kind of man invisible to the elite circles of campus life. But Sarah, with the sharp instincts of a naturally pragmatic woman, saw what other girls overlooked. While her boyfriends drank themselves stupid and lived off their parents' money, Mark possessed iron discipline and raw architectural talent. She saw absolute financial security in his future. She deliberately gave him the green light, choosing him as a safe harbor after growing tired of reckless fun. To Mark, Sarah, the most beautiful angel on campus, agreeing to date him was a miracle, a divine grace bestowed by God. He loved her with agape love, sacrificial, unconditional, reverent. He worked 18 hours a day, rising from junior architect to owner of one of the East Coast's leading landscape design firms, all to build the castle Sarah deserved. 10 years passed. Mark's social status far exceeded anything Sarah had calculated. But ironically, once financial security was guaranteed, Sarah began to feel suffocated. She no longer saw Mark as a promising investment, but as a boring, dry, middle-aged man constantly talking about faith and responsibility. In Sarah's eyes now, Mark was nothing more than a breathing ATM. He provided black cards, 5-star vacations, and glamorous charity galas for her to show off online. But he did not give her physical thrill, the excitement of dangerous erotic games she once enjoyed in her youth. Excess comfort bred corruption, and Sarah's gratitude was quietly replaced by contempt for her husband, too decent to be exciting. Greenwich Country Club is the sanctuary of Connecticut's elite, where million-dollar deals are signed on golf courses and the darkest secrets are whispered over martinis. Sarah parks her pristine white Range Rover in the VIP members lot. She adjusts her extremely short white tennis skirt, exposing her long legs, and walks onto the practice court. Today is a private lesson with Kyle, the club's newly hired tennis coach. Kyle is 25, tanned, muscular, with a signature lady killer smile of young men who prey on lonely married women. "Perfect serve, Sarah. You're a work of art on the court," Kyle exclaims as she swings. He steps closer, pretending to correct her grip. His hand accidentally slides from her wrist up her bare arm, lingering at her waist longer than necessary for a coach. Sarah doesn't pull away. She shivers as a jolt of electricity runs down her spine. How long has it been since Mark touched her like this, since he called her desirable? To Mark, devout and traditional, compliments revolved around her being a good mother and a capable wife. He revered her like a saint, but Kyle desired her like a woman of raw lust. "It's unbelievable you've had 2 kids," Kyle whispers in her ear, his breath hot. "You're hotter than women in their 20s. Your husband is either the luckiest man alive or the dumbest if he lets you come here alone." American vanity surges inside Sarah. She craves this physical validation. She is sick of Mark's safety and decency. She wants danger, something dirty, to feel young again. Mark's on a business trip. Sarah turns, locking eyes with Kyle, her gaze openly inviting. And I'm feeling very bored. They don't meet at the Ritz-Carlton or luxury Manhattan hotels. Too many familiar faces there. Seeking thrill and secrecy, Sarah drives north about 20 miles from Greenwich to a rundown roadside motel along I-95. It is a cheap place with a flickering neon vacancy sign meant for long-haul truckers or illicit lovers. The contrast between Sarah's status and the motel's filth heightened her twisted excitement. She throws herself into the affair, leaving behind the sacred vows once sworn before God. In Dallas, Texas, the landscape renovation project for a megachurch's prayer garden finishes 2 days ahead of schedule. To Mark, this is not luck or efficiency. For the past week, the Texas sky has been cloudless, the sunshine perfect, allowing planting and stonework to proceed with uncanny ease. Mark believes it is grace, God's hand guiding him home sooner. He changes his flight to the earliest one back to New York, his heart filled with joy. He imagines Sarah's surprised smile and the children's cheers when he appears at Friday dinner. He even stops by duty-free to buy Sarah a bottle of her favorite Jo Malone peony perfume. After landing at JFK, Mark retrieves his sedan from long-term parking and drives north on I-95 toward Greenwich. Around 4 p.m., passing through the border area between New York and Connecticut, far less glamorous than his billionaire neighborhood, Mark feels unbearably thirsty. An invisible urge, perhaps fate's guidance, leads him to exit the highway in search of a convenience store. As his car turns onto a cracked asphalt road, Mark's eyes catch a flickering neon vacancy sign of a shabby motel called the Blue Moon Motel. It's the kind of place addicts frequent, with peeling paint and trash scattered across the lot. But what makes Mark slam on the brakes, nearly hitting the curb, is something that does not belong here at all. Parked boldly among rusted pickup trucks and battered sedans is a pearl-white Range Rover autobiography, gleaming and arrogant. Like a swan in a landfill. Mark's heart tightens, pounding against his ribs. He squints at the silver custom vanity plate, SRHLUV. There is no mistaking it. It is the car he gave Sarah for her birthday last year. Why would his wife, who shops only on Fifth Avenue, obsessed with cleanliness and status, be here at this hour? Charity work? No. Sarah's charity groups only host tea parties at 5-star hotels. Mark's hands tremble on the steering wheel, cold sweat breaking out despite the running air conditioner. He touches the silver cross on his neck. He realizes the early project completion, the detour, none of it is coincidence. God has lifted the veil. God has brought him here to see what is hidden in the darkness. This is the sign, and no matter how painful, he cannot turn back. Mark steered the Cadillac into a hidden corner behind a row of industrial dumpsters where the shadows of old oak trees covered everything. He turned off the engine, his hands trembling as he opened the family tracking app, Life 360, on his phone. The green dot representing Sarah was blinking right in front of him, cruelly motionless at the location of room 9. Mark stepped out of the car, pulled the brim of his baseball cap low to hide eyes bloodshot with pain. He moved quietly over the crunching gravel, trying not to make a sound, like a ghost walking toward hell. Room 9 was located at the very end of the motel row. The cheap plastic window curtain had been pulled aside unevenly, leaving a gap about 2 fingers wide, the carelessness of people lost in lust, forgetting the outside world. Mark pressed himself against the wall and held his breath as he looked through the gap. The scene inside struck him like a red-hot blade stabbing straight through his chest. Sarah, the wife he treasured like a precious jewel, the mother of his children, was sitting on the worn-out sheet, its sheets wrinkled and dirty. She was giggling, her hand stroking the bare chest of a young, muscular man, someone Mark immediately recognized as Kyle, the tennis coach he paid $100 an hour to teach his wife. This was not just physical. The way Sarah looked at Kyle, the flirtatious eyes, the seductive gestures, the complete surrender, this was betrayal of the soul. She was offering him the passion she had denied Mark for many years, giving it freely to an empty, meaningless boy. Mark's blood boiled violently. The primitive instinct of a man screamed in his head, "Kick the door down! Kill them! Make them pay!" His hand clenched into a fist, veins bulging, ready to smash through the fragile glass separating him from that filthy truth. But at the very moment his rage was about to explode into violence, Mark's other hand unconsciously touched the cold silver cross on his chest. A verse from the Bible rang in his mind, clear and forceful like church bells. "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." Mark froze. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath of the damp air mixed with exhaust fumes. If he stormed in now, he would become a violent criminal. He would lose custody of his children. He would drag his dignity down to the same level as the adulterers. God's vengeance was not loud or reckless. The truth was the sharpest blade of all. Mark relaxed his fist. He stepped back and hid behind an old vending machine. He waited patiently for another 15 minutes. The door of room 9 swung open. Sarah and Kyle walked out. They were not in a hurry, not ashamed. Kyle wrapped an arm around Sarah's waist and kissed her passionately right next to the white Range Rover. Sarah kissed him back, smiling brightly, adjusting her lover's collar. Mark calmly raised his phone. The high-resolution camera captured everything: the license plate, the satisfied face of his wife, the intimate gestures of the lover, and the cheap, filthy surroundings. The video was 45 seconds long, enough to end 10 years of marriage, enough to bury the honor of a proud queen bee. Mark pressed save, slipped the phone into his pocket, and turned back toward his car. His heart was shattered, but his soul suddenly felt eerily calm and resolute. Mark drove the Cadillac into the garage. The dashboard clock read 5:30 p.m. The magnificent glass mansion still stood there, reflecting the blazing sunset, but to Mark now it looked like a beautifully gilded tomb. The warmth of home was gone, replaced by the cold weight of lies. He entered the house without turning on the lights. The first thing he did was walk straight into the master bathroom. He stood under the shower and turned the hot water all the way up. The burning stream poured over his skin, steam filling the room. Mark scrubbed his body hard, as if trying to wash away the filth clinging to his mind after what he had seen. He did not cry. Tears solved nothing. The quiet strength of faith was slowly taking control of the chaos inside him. After showering, Mark put on clean cotton pajamas and went into the home office. He did not turn on the computer. Instead, he sat down in the Eames leather chair and opened his old leather-bound Bible. He turned to Psalm 34. "Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit." 6 p.m. The garage door opened. The sound of high heels clicked against the oak floor. Sarah entered the house, arms loaded with Nordstrom and Saks Fifth Avenue shopping bags. She had no idea Mark was already home. When she saw the light coming from the office, she flinched and quickly adjusted her expression from post-affair satisfaction to the tired look of a devoted housewife. "Mark, you're home already?" Sarah stepped into the office, set the bags down, and smiled sweetly, though her eyes flickered with unease. "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I just went to pick tablecloths and candles for the party. My legs are killing me." Mark looked up at his wife. In that moment, Sarah expected a hug, or at least the warm smile she always received. But none came. Mark looked at her, his eyes deep and still like a winter lake. No anger, no accusation, only vast sadness and profound pity. He pitied her not because she was about to lose everything, but because she was selling her soul and dignity to shallow desires while lying effortlessly with her lips. "The project finished early. I wanted to surprise you," Mark said softly, distant, not standing up. Sarah felt uneasy under that gaze. She stepped closer, trying to wrap her arms around his neck to distract him. "I missed you so much. Tonight maybe we—" Mark gently leaned away, avoiding her touch firmly but politely. He closed the Bible and stood up, walking toward the window. "I'm sorry. The long flight made my back flare up again, the old disc problem." Mark lied, the first and last lie of his marriage. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. I need a firmer mattress." Sarah stood frozen, her hand hanging in midair. She felt an invisible but solid wall rise between them, but her overconfidence and the belief that that foolish, devout Mark would never know quickly pushed the worry aside. "All right, get some rest for you," Sarah said, picking up her bags and heading to the master bedroom, secretly pleased she wouldn't have to perform for her boring husband tonight. She had no idea that this separation was the beginning of a permanent farewell. In the days that followed, the glass mansion in Greenwich turned into a massive construction site of vanity. Sarah threw herself into preparing the vow renewal ceremony with the energy of an addict high on drugs. She hired Preston Bailey, one of New York's top event planners, to transform the backyard into a true Garden of Eden. Sarah placed a budget proposal of $50,000 in front of Mark. "Darling, I know it's expensive," Sarah cooed, her finger drawing circles on Mark's chest. "But I want fresh flowers flown in from the Netherlands and a Michelin chef from Manhattan. It's our 10-year milestone. We need to show our country club friends how happy we are." Mark looked at the estimate, his face showing no sign of concern over the money. He pulled out his Mont Blanc pen and signed the check. "Fine, Sarah. Make it spectacular," Mark said calmly. "I want everyone to remember that day forever. I want the truth about our love to be revealed under the brightest light." Sarah squealed with joy and hugged her husband tightly. She was far too intoxicated by victory to notice the double meaning in his words. That evening, they reviewed the guest list together. "Both parents, Pastor Thomas, the Robinsons," Sarah read aloud. "That should cover all the important people, right?" Mark took the list, scanned it once, then added one name at the bottom. "You forgot someone," Mark said. "Invite Kyle as well." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She stiffened, forcing her voice to stay normal. "Kyle? The tennis coach? He's not close enough to our family for such a private event, is he?" Mark looked up, his eyes so clear and sincere that Sarah almost found his innocence amusing. "He's helped both of us stay healthy this past year. As a man of faith, I think we should treat those who serve us kindly. Invite him for a drink, as a thank you." Sarah let out a quiet breath of relief. Inside, she mocked him. "Oh, Mark, you holy fool. You're inviting your wife's lover to your own anniversary party and thinking you're doing charity." "Whatever you decide, dear," Sarah smiled, secretly thrilled at the thought of seeing Kyle in a sharp suit inside her own home. Mark watched his wife smile, then turned back to his computer screen. He did not tell her that while spending money on the party, he had also paid a large sum to a digital forensics private investigation firm. They had just sent him a compressed file containing Sarah's entire deleted iMessage history and GPS data. The file for Judgment Day was complete. 2 days before the vow renewal ceremony. The evening in Greenwich was unusually quiet, with only the steady chirping of crickets coming from the old oak bushes in the garden. In the spacious master bedroom, Sarah stood in front of the mirror trying on her custom-made ivory white Vera Wang evening gown. The organza silk hugged her flawless body, highlighting the aristocratic beauty she had always been proud of. The bedroom door opened softly. Mark walked in, holding a small box wrapped in the signature blue velvet of Tiffany & Co. "Mark?" Sarah turned around, her eyes lighting up when she saw the box. "For me? But it's not the ceremony yet." Mark didn't answer right away. He slowly stepped closer and opened the box. Inside, resting on black silk, was a delicate platinum necklace with a cross-shaped pendant, fully set with tiny, sparkling diamonds. It was not flashy or gaudy, but elegant, refined, and heavy. "Oh my God, it's beautiful!" Sarah exclaimed, raising her hand to cover her mouth. She had expected earrings or a ring, but diamonds were always welcome. "Let me put it on you," Mark said in a warm, low voice. He reached around Sarah's neck and fastened the clasp. In that moment, he looked at their reflection in the mirror. Sarah looked radiant, angelic, and behind her stood Mark, his face calm like the surface of an autumn lake, his eyes hiding a deep, unspoken sorrow. The diamond cross lay cold against the hollow of Sarah's neck, close to the heart that was beating with dishonest rhythms. "Sarah," Mark whispered, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror. "Do you know why I chose a cross?" Sarah toyed with the diamonds and giggled. "Because we're a religious family? Or because it matches the dress?" Mark gently shook his head. "In the Bible, John 8:32 says, 'Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" Sarah paused for a brief moment. The familiar verse from church services suddenly sounded strange when spoken in Mark's serious tone. A chill ran down her spine, but the sparkle of the diamonds quickly pushed away the vague unease. "You're so thoughtful, Mark." Sarah turned around and kissed him lightly on the cheek. "I promise the ceremony will prove the truth of our love." Mark looked at her. A faint, empty smile crossed his lips. "Yes, Sarah, the truth will be revealed, and after that day you will be free. Completely free." Sarah smiled with satisfaction, admiring herself in the mirror again, completely unaware that the freedom Mark spoke of was not the triumph of love, but liberation from a rotten marriage. The necklace around her neck was not jewelry, it was a tag marking a soul about to be judged. On that fateful Sunday, the Connecticut sky was a flawless sapphire blue, not a single cloud in sight, as if nature itself were complicit in decorating this false perfection. The backyard of Mark and Sarah's home had been completely transformed under the hands of top-tier event planners. It became a true Garden of Eden of the 21st century. Thousands of white hydrangeas and Ecuadorian roses formed magnificent arches. A four-piece string quartet played gentle compositions by Bach and Vivaldi. Servers in black and white uniforms moved gracefully, carrying silver trays filled with bubbling glasses of Dom Perignon. Sarah appeared like a goddess. The ivory Vera Wang gown embraced her sensual figure, her blonde hair styled into an elegant updo. Around her neck, the diamond cross Mark gave her shimmered brilliantly under the sunlight, drawing admiring glances from every direction. She moved among the guests, the elite of Greenwich, smiling, clinking glasses, accepting hollow congratulations about a perfect marriage. "You both look wonderful," Sarah's mother, a fashionable woman, clasped her daughter's hand admiringly. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. You have everything." Sarah smiled contentedly. She glanced toward the outdoor bar. There stood Kyle, looking slightly out of place in a rented suit that was a bit loose on his muscular frame, but his eyes burned with desire when they met hers. Sarah felt a rush of twisted excitement. Her husband was here, her parents were here, and her lover was here too. She felt like the center of the universe, the one controlling the game. Mark stood on a small wooden platform set in the garden where a vintage standing microphone had been placed. He wore a black Ralph Lauren tuxedo, his demeanor strangely composed and dignified. He stepped down, shaking hands with guests, thanking them for coming. When he reached Kyle, Mark did not avoid him. He extended his hand and firmly shook the hand of his wife's lover. "Thank you for coming, Kyle," Mark said, looking straight into his eyes. His grip was strong and decisive, making Kyle visibly uneasy. "Today wouldn't be complete without the man who helped my wife train so diligently." Kyle forced an awkward smile, unsettled by Mark's excessive kindness. Yes. Congratulations, Mark. Beautiful party." Mark nodded, patted Kyle's shoulder, then turned and walked back up to the platform. The sound of a silver spoon tapping a crystal glass rang out. Ding, 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 signaling the ceremony had begun. The music stopped. All eyes turned toward the man hosting the family. Absolute silence fell, broken only by the rustling wind through oak leaves. The scene was a picture perfect, but beneath the lush green grass, a bomb of truth had already been armed. Mark stood on the wooden platform, his left hand lightly holding the microphone, his right resting on the thick leather-bound Bible placed on the table. The evening breeze lifted the tails of his tuxedo, but his face remained still like a carved statue. He scanned the crowd, glamorous friends, business partners, both sets of parents watching him with expectation, and Sarah standing in the front row, holding a wine glass, her radiant smile fixed in place like a queen awaiting her crown. "Ladies and gentlemen, family and dear friends," Mark's deep voice echoed through the high-end Bose speakers hidden among the rose bushes. 10 years ago, on a beautiful sunny day just like this, Sarah and I stood before God and exchanged our vows. We promised to love each other in prosperity and in hardship, in sickness and in health. Mark paused briefly, his eyes resting on Sarah's face. She tilted her head slightly, shy and happy. "For 10 years, I have tried to build this home." He gestured toward the magnificent glass mansion behind him. "People call it the glass house. As an architect, glass is not just a material to me. It is a symbol of transparency. Light passes through glass, and so does truth. In God's house, there is no corner dark enough for shadows to hide." The crowd remained utterly silent. Some guests sensed something strange in Mark's tone. This did not sound like a celebratory speech. It sounded more like a solemn sermon. "The Bible teaches us in the letter to the Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth." Mark took a deep breath, his voice growing firmer. "But sometimes, as humans, because of the weakness of the flesh and the temptation of vanity, we draw the curtains over those glass windows ourselves. We live in lies and call it happiness. We wear perfect masks on Instagram while our souls rot inside." Sarah felt her smile stiffen. A sense of unease crept into her stomach. Why was Mark talking about lies and masks on a day like this? She glanced at Kyle. He was frowning too, visibly confused. "Today, I want us to honor the most fundamental value of marriage. Not wealth, not these extravagant parties, but the truth." Mark turned to face his wife. The warmth in his eyes was gone, replaced by the cold clarity of a judge moments before delivering a verdict. "Sarah, you prepared this party very carefully, and I have also prepared a special gift to review the most truthful journey of our lives together. I invite everyone to look at the screen." Mark raised his hand. The garden lights went out. A massive LED screen set in the middle of the garden lit up. Sarah exhaled in relief, reassuring herself it's probably just another slideshow of wedding photos and pictures of the kids. Mark always liked dramatic symbolism. She raised her glass to her lips, ready to enjoy her moment in the spotlight. The massive LED screen suddenly blazed to life, slicing through the twilight atmosphere of the late afternoon. The gentle symphonic music from the string quartet was still playing softly in the background, creating a chilling contrast with what was about to unfold. Sarah smiled, tilted her head gracefully, waiting for the magnificent wedding photo from 10 years ago to appear. She was ready to receive the gasps of admiration. But no. The first image that appeared was not a wedding cathedral. It was a still photograph, razor sharp in every detail, the flickering neon sign with peeling paint of the Blue Moon Motel, a rundown roadside motel along Interstate I-95, infamous as a gathering place for drug addicts and cheap prostitutes. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. "What is that? Is this some kind of installation art?" Sarah frowned. The wine glass in her hand trembled slightly. The slide shifted to the second image. The entire garden held its breath. It was a luxurious pearl-white Range Rover, standing grotesquely out of place amid piles of trash and rusted old trucks. The camera lens had zoomed in tightly on the custom license plate, SRH Love. No one in Greenwich didn't recognize that car. It was Sarah's pride, the vehicle she drove everywhere, from the gym to the children's school. The blood drained from Sarah's face. Her heart seemed to stop. She wanted to scream for them to turn it off, but her throat locked shut, dry and airless like a desert. And then the video began to play. There was no sound. None was needed. The images alone were more than enough. On the giant screen, the door to room 9 of the shabby motel swung open. Sarah, wearing a tight yoga outfit, stepped out together with Kyle. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes rumpled. Kyle wrapped an arm around her waist, his hand sliding down to slap her backside crudely. They kissed passionately, full of lust, right beside the luxury car. Crash! A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the tiled floor. It was the glass from Sarah's mother. She raised a hand to cover her mouth, eyes wide in horror as she stared at her daughter on the screen. Next, a stream of iMessage screenshots began to scroll past, explicit, vulgar, and calculating messages that Sarah had sent to PTA president Kyle. "Your old husband is in Texas. I'll make it up to you tonight. I'm sick of playing the saint. I need you." The entire garden went dead silent. The luxurious Garden of Eden collapsed in an instant, transforming into a public courtroom. The admiring gazes that had been directed at Sarah just minutes ago now turned into looks of disgust, contempt, and pity. Her elite friends stepped back, creating an empty circle that isolated her in the center. Kyle's face turned ghostly pale as he glanced around, searching for an escape, but the stares of other men blocked every path. Sarah stood alone. Her pristine white Vera Wang gown now looked like a cruel joke, mocking the filth of her soul. The naked truth had been exposed under the brightest possible light, exactly as Mark had promised. The video ended with the image of the white Range Rover disappearing behind a line of bushes. The LED screen went dark, returning the garden to the dim glow of dusk. But the original, tranquil, romantic atmosphere was shattered, replaced by a deadly silence, heavy as lead. The high society guests of Greenwich, people accustomed to restraint and polished manners, could no longer hide their shock. They looked at Sarah as if she were a strange creature, a stain against the immaculate white backdrop of the event. Sarah's parents stood frozen, humiliated to the point of not daring to lift their heads, wishing the ground would split open and swallow them. Kyle, the muscular trainer, now shrank like a rat caught in headlights. He slowly edged toward the back gate, trying to disappear from the sight of powerful men who stared at him with contempt and threat. On the wooden platform, Sarah snapped out of her shock. Panic flooded her mind. The perfect image she had carefully built over 10 years had dissolved into nothing in just a few minutes. "Mark, turn it off! You're insane!" Sarah screamed as she rushed toward her husband, trying to grab the microphone. "Let me explain. Everyone, please. It's a misunderstanding. It was edited." But Mark did not let her touch him. Calmly yet firmly, he pushed her hand away, creating a clear distance. He was not angry. He did not shout. His face remained terrifyingly composed, the composure of a man who had already accepted letting go. Mark slowly removed the white gold wedding ring from the ring finger of his left hand. He placed it on top of the leather-bound Bible resting on the table, the place that held the most sacred vows. "Sarah," Mark said into the microphone, his voice deep and steady, not trembling in the slightest. "You don't need to explain. The truth does not need a defense. It is, by itself, the strongest evidence." He looked straight into his wife's tear-filled, panic-stricken eyes. "As a servant of God, I forgive you. I will not carry hatred in my heart because the Bible teaches, 'Let him who is without sin cast the first stone.' I forgive your weakness of the flesh." The crowd held its breath. Sarah froze. A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. She thought Mark, the devout, soft-hearted husband, would be merciful once again. But Mark continued, his voice turning cold and resolute. "However, as a husband, I refuse to continue living in this lie. Marriage is a sacred covenant among 3 parties, you, me, and God. You unilaterally broke that covenant in that cheap motel. You trampled on the respect I gave you." He pointed toward the magnificent glass house and the lavish party around them. "You wanted a grand ceremony. You wanted people to admire you. Here, I've given you exactly what you wished. This party, this house, and the hollow status you crave, that is the final gift I give to your vanity. Keep it all, along with your lover." With that, Mark stepped down from the platform. He did not look back at the wife who collapsed onto the wooden floor, sobbing uncontrollably in her now ridiculous Vera Wang gown. He walked straight toward the front gate. There, a Cadillac Escalade was already running. The nanny had taken Noah and Emma into the car before the video was shown, so their innocent souls would not witness their mother's disgrace. Mark opened the door and got in. The vehicle pulled away, leaving the glass house, leaving Greenwich, abandoning behind it the ashes of a glamorous but rotten marriage. He left with no property, but he carried with him the most precious things of all, truth and self-respect. 6 months later, winter had covered Connecticut in a blanket of cold, blinding white. In an aging apartment complex on the outskirts of Stamford, far removed from Greenwich in both distance and status, Sarah sat curled up on a worn sofa, holding a letter from the court. It was the final divorce judgment. Sarah had lost everything. She had underestimated Mark and his family. 10 years earlier, before the wedding, Mark's father, a seasoned New York attorney, had advised his son to sign a strict prenuptial agreement. Mark signed it out of trust. Sarah signed it because she believed she would never be caught. but the contract contained a severe infidelity clause. If either party cheated, they would lose all rights to alimony and any claim to assets generated by the other party's separate company. With the undeniable evidence displayed on that LED screen, Sarah walked away with nothing. The Range Rover was repossessed. The Hermes and Chanel bags were sold off cheaply to pay rent and legal fees. The Greenwich Parent Association friends, who once praised her endlessly, now blocked her number and unfriended her on Facebook. To them, she was a stain to be avoided for the sake of their own reputations. Kyle, her young lover, vanished immediately after the party in search of another naive, rich woman. Sarah now worked as a cashier at Target. The hands that once held wine glasses and black cards were now cracked from scanning barcodes and bagging groceries every day. Sunday morning, the church bells of Grace Community Church rang out through the snowy mist. Mark knelt in the front pew, eyes closed, his face radiating an unusual peace. Beside him, Noah and Emma bowed their heads in prayer, their small hands clasped together. No longer burdened by lies, Mark seemed reborn. He had found peace not in bitter revenge, but in living by his faith and letting go of what did not belong to God. Outside the church's stained glass windows, a woman wrapped tightly in a scarf stood silently in the snow. Sarah looked through the glass and saw the warmth inside. She saw Mark smiling gently as he stroked the children's heads. She saw a peace she had longed for all her life and had destroyed with her own shallow desires. She raised her hand to her neck, touching the only thing she had kept from her former marriage, the diamond cross necklace Mark had given her that night. Its weight no longer lay in the diamonds, but in the message it carried: truth. Tears streamed down Sarah's face, freezing in the cold wind. She wanted to push the door open, to kneel and beg for forgiveness, but her legs felt unbearably heavy. She understood that some doors, once closed, can never be opened again. God's forgiveness is always available, but the consequences of wrong choices on earth must be borne by humans themselves. Sarah turned away and walked slowly into the snowstorm, her lonely figure dissolving into the endless white.